The blast did not throw me backward, so much as it erased direction altogether. One moment the palace corridor existed, polished crystal walls humming with defensive fields. The next it collapsed into fire and pressure that crushed the air from my lungs. I hit the floor hard, armor screaming warnings, vision smeared with sparks and smoke. Sound returned slowly, distorted, like the galaxy itself had gone underwater. I tried to move and discovered my body no longer answered me. Panic rose, then training crushed it down. Breathe. Assess. Survive. The ambush had been precise. Too precise. Inner security rings were supposed to be impossible to breach. Yet here we were, emergency lights flickering, guards scattered or dead, the smell of scorched metal thick enough to taste. Through the haze I saw her, standing several meters away, untouched by the blast that had shattered everything else. The Queendidn, sovereign of the Aurelian Concord, ruler of worlds I could barely pronounce, her tall form outlined by the pulsing glow of her bioluminescent markings. Even in chaos she was composed, posture straight, eyes sharp with calculation rather than fear. Humans were never meant to be this close to her. We were auxiliary forces, tolerated for our resilience, valued for our capacity to endure conditions other species could not, but kept carefully at arm's length. Our orders were simple. Observe, secure perimeters, intervene only if commanded. I remembered those words clearly as I lay broken on the floor, because breaking them was about to cost me everything. The air shimmered behind the Queen as the assassins breached the final barrier. I saw their weapons power up, elegant alien technology, humming with lethal intent. I also saw the Queen shift her weight, preparing to step forward, already calculating how many lives she could save by sacrificing her own. That was the moment something inside me snapped into clarity. I did not think of politics or treaties or the quiet disdain many Concord officers held for my species. I did not think of survival odds or the fact that my body was already injured. I thought only that she was going to die and that I was close enough to do something about it. I forced my limbs to obey through pain that felt like liquid fire and ran. Each step sent agony screaming up my spine, but momentum carried me forward. The plasma charge detonated before I reached her. I remember a flash of white, then slamming into her side with everything I had, wrapping my arms around a body lighter than it looked, pulling her down as the explosion hit. My armor absorbed the first wave. My bones absorbed what remained. When I came back to myself, the ceiling was gone, replaced by drifting smoke and fractured light. My helmet had been torn away, and every breath burned. I could not feel my legs at all. Internal diagnostics painted my vision with red warnings I did not bother reading. I already knew what they said. I was dying. She knelt beside me. The Queendidn had lowered herself to the ruined floor, her regal composure shattered into something raw and unmistakably personal. Her hands hovered over my chest plate, unsure where to touch, bioluminescence flickering wildly in patterns I had never seen. Around us, guards shouted, weapons raised, unsure whether to extract their ruler or eliminate the wounded human who had violated protocol in the most spectacular way possible. "Stay back," she commanded, her voice cutting to the chaos with absolute authority. They obeyed instantly, her gaze fixed on my face, pupils dilated as her empathic senses brushed against my pain. "You were not ordered to do this," she said, not accusing, simply stating fact. I managed a crooked smile that pulled at broken ribs. "Humans aren't great with orders," I replied, blood on my teeth making the words sloppy, especially bad ones. The palace shook again as distant explosions rippled through the structure. Advisors shouted that evacuation windows were closing, that the throne could not be risked. She did not look away from me. Her hands pressed against my armor, glowing faintly as if instinct alone might hold me together. "You are losing consciousness," she said softly. "Yeah," I admitted. "That happens when you get blown up." Something shifted in her expression then, something dangerously close to fear. "You place your life above mine without hesitation." "Seem fair," I said. "You've got more people depending on you." Her bioluminescence dimmed, the light retreating like a held breath. "So do you." The words hit harder than the blast. No one in the Concord had ever spoken to me like that, as if my existence carried weight beyond utility. I tried to respond, but darkness crowded my vision, dragging me under. The last thing I felt before losing consciousness was her hand closing around mine, grip firm despite the tremor running through her. I drifted in and out of awareness. Each time I surfaced, the world was louder or quieter, brighter or dimmer, but one thing never changed. She was still there. The Queendidn remained kneeling beside me while the battle raged through her palace, while fires were contained and enemies hunted down. She did not eat. She did not rest. She did not leave. Medics came and went, working frantically to stabilize me, whispering probabilities they thought she could not hear. She heard everything. That understanding stayed with me as consciousness slipped away again, dragging memories and pain into a distant hum. I became aware of movement, of voices arguing in hushed, urgent tones, of medical instruments sealing wounds that should have been fatal. Through it all, her presence never wavered. When spasms racked my body, her grip tightened. When my breathing faltered, her glow brightened, as if urging me to keep going. I was dimly aware that such intimacy was unprecedented, that for a species' physical closeness carried deep cultural meaning, but in that moment none of it mattered. What mattered was that I was not alone. At some point the alarm softened, replaced by the steady rhythm of control systems. The battle, I realized hazily, must be ending. Victory or defeat no longer seemed relevant to me. My world had narrowed to the rise and fall of my chest, and the quiet certainty that someone powerful enough to command fleets had chosen to sit in broken rubble with a single expendable human. That knowledge warmed me more effectively than any thermal blanket. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me. A reckless death worlder, a liability, or something else entirely. I had spent my career being underestimated, treated as muscle rather than mind, survival rather than significance. Yet here, stripped of armor and authority, I felt seen in a way I never had before. As darkness claimed me once more, I held on to that thought. Whatever awaited me if I survived, whatever consequences follow for her choice to stay, this moment would not be forgotten. In a galaxy built on caution and calculation, something fragile and dangerous had just been born. I did not yet know its name, but I sensed it would demand a price from us both, and that pain would change everything that followed. Across the waiting stars, I woke to silence so complete it felt artificial, as if sound itself had been filtered out. My eyes opened slowly, greeted by a curved ceiling of transparent crystal that revealed a field of distant stars. For a long moment, I thought I was dead, and this was some merciful hallucination my brain had invented to soften the end. Then pain arrived, deep and precise, anchoring me firmly among the living. It radiated from my spine, wrapped around my ribs, and settled into my limbs like a warning not to move. I obeyed. Machines surrounded me, sleek and elegant, their soft hum replacing the chaos I remembered. Light flowed across my skin in slow waves, warm and strangely calming. I realized I was suspended rather than lying down, my body held in place by a medical field far beyond anything humanity possessed. Each breath felt measured, assisted, monitored. I was alive because something incredibly advanced refused to let me die. "You're awake." Her voice came from my left, calm but unmistakably tired. I turned my head with effort and found the Queendidn seated beside the medical platform. She no longer wore ceremonial armor or diplomatic insignia. Instead, she was draped in simple fabric, her bioluminescent markings dimmer than before, pulsing at a subdued rhythm. She looked less like a monarch and more like someone who had not slept in days. "Guess I didn't mess it up completely," I said, my voice rough and weak. Relief crossed her features, brief but genuine. "Your condition was unstable for many cycles. There were moments when survival probabilities fell below acceptable thresholds. Humans specialize in unacceptable," I replied. The corner of her mouth twitched, almost a smile, then faded as her gaze returned to the data scrolling above me. I followed her eyes and saw diagrams of my own body, highlighted with damage that made my stomach tighten. My spine glowed a worrying red, fracture spiderwebbing outward. Even without medical training, I understood enough to feel fear settle in. "You should not be here," I said quietly. "Your people need you." They are alive because of you, she answered. My presence here does not endanger them. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion pressed down on me, heavy and irresistible. Before I could respond, footsteps approached, sharp and purposeful. Several Concord officials entered the chamber, their posture rigid, expressions carefully neutral. The air changed immediately, tension replacing the fragile calm we had built. The sovereign's recovery chamber is not a place for prolonged visitation, one of them said, addressing her without looking at me. Your absence from the council has already raised concerns. She stood slowly, movement controlled, authority settling back onto her shoulders like a familiar mantle. This human's condition is my concern. Murmurs rippled through the officials. One of them finally glanced at me, eyes cold and assessing, as if measuring the cost of my continued existence. He represents a complication, another said. Public response to the incident is escalating. The footage has spread beyond our ability to contain it. Footage. The word landed heavily. I remembered flashes of light in the corridor, recording drones hovering even as everything fell apart. My stomach sank. What kind of response? I asked. The Queen didn't answer before they could. Division. She dismissed the officials with a gesture that brooked no argument. Once they were gone, she turned back to me, expression unguarded again. The galaxy has seen what happened. They have seen you shield me with your body. They have seen me remain at your side. And that's a problem, I said. Yes, she agreed. For many, as strength slowly returned. So did awareness. I learned that while I lay unconscious, factions within the Concord had erupted into debate. Some praised my actions as evidence of humanity's loyalty and capacity for sacrifice. Others labeled me a destabilizing influence, a dangerous emotional variable that compromised the throne. Among humans, reactions were equally volatile. Some hailed me as a hero. Others accused the Queen of exploiting my injury to manipulate public sentiment. The truth, inconvenient and unmarketable, satisfied no one. Recovery was not gentle. Procedures were invasive, experimental, often agonizing. I screamed through some of them, pride shredded by pain I could not hide. She was there for many of those sessions, standing just beyond the field, watching with stillness that felt like solidarity. When I apologized for the display, she corrected me calmly. Endurance is not the absence of pain, she said. It is a decision to continue despite it. Between treatments, we talked about strategy, about fear, about the strange similarities between a human soldier and an alien monarch, both bound by duty, both expected to sacrifice endlessly without complaint. I realized she carried isolation as heavily as I carried scars. Power, it seemed, was a lonely place. The conflict reached its sharpest edge weeks later, when I was strong enough to sit upright without assistance. She arrived that day accompanied by a formal delegation, their expressions grim. I knew before anyone spoke that this was not a social visit. There has been a ruling, she said once the chamber was secure. I braced myself. Let me guess. I'm being sent away. Yes, she said softly. Or I am. The choice, when explained, was brutally simple. Ancient Concord law prohibited the sovereign from forming personal bonds with non-Concord entities, citing the risk of compromised judgment. Her refusal to leave my side, broadcast across the stars, had been interpreted as a violation. The council demanded correction. Either I would be exiled beyond Concord space, erased from political relevance, or she would step down as Queendidn. That's insane, I said, anger cutting through weakness. This is my fault. I'll go. Her gaze sharpened. You will not decide this alone. I'm expendable, I insisted. You're not. She leaned closer, voice low and fierce. You are not expendable to me. The words hung between us, dangerous and irrevocable. In that moment, I understood the true cost of what I had done in that corridor. Saving her life had been the easy part. Living with the consequences would be far harder. The council session was scheduled quickly, pressure mounting from every side. On the day of the hearing, I was transported to the chamber in full view of representatives from dozens of worlds. I felt exposed without armor, scars visible, body still imperfect. Whispers followed me, curiosity and judgment intertwined. She stood at the center of the chamber, radiant and unyielding. When the accusations were leveled, she did not deny them. When asked to choose, she did not hesitate. "I will not abandon him," she said. Outrage erupted. Arguments flew. Laws were cited, traditions invoked. I watched, heart pounding, as the galaxy argued over my worth. Then something unexpected happened. A human delegate stood, then another species, then another. One by one, voices rose not in condemnation, but in support. They spoke of loyalty, of courage, of the moment they had witnessed and could not unsee. The vote failed by a narrow margin. The law was suspended pending reform. As I was wheeled back to recovery, exhaustion and relief tangled together. I realized the conflict was not over. It had only changed shape. Something fundamental had shifted, and the galaxy would not easily settle again. I closed my eyes, knowing that whatever came next would demand more than survival. Recovery did not arrive as a single moment of triumph, but as a long procession of small, stubborn victories. The first was feeling my toes again, a faint tingling that made me laugh until pain stole my breath. The second was sitting upright, without the medical field compensating for my balance. Each gain came with setbacks, days when progress reversed and frustration threatened to hollow me out. Through all of it, the Queendidn remained a constant presence, not hovering, not directing. Simply there, a quiet witness to effort rather than outcome. As my body healed, the galaxy refused to rest. The suspended law had not erased the vision, only delayed its reckoning. Delegations argued across secure channels, weighing tradition against precedent, stability against the image of a ruler who had chosen compassion publicly and without apology. I was no longer merely a patient. I was a symbol others projected meaning onto, whether I wished it or not. That knowledge unsettled me more than the pain ever had. I had acted on instinct, not ideology, yet entire worlds now debated the implications of that instinct. The Queendidn spoke to me openly about it, never shielding me from the consequences. "Change frightens those who benefit from stillness," she said one evening as we watched the planet's rings drift past the observation dome. "They will test this moment until it breaks or reshapes them." "I never meant to reshape anything," I replied. "No one who does ever does," she answered. Physical strength returned faster than certainty. I learned to walk again beneath alien stars, my steps unsteady at first, guided by systems that adjusted gravity to challenge me incrementally. Each successful circuit felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I had assumed lost forever. She watched those sessions too, offering no praise, only attention, as if effort itself was worthy of respect. I began to understand that her people valued presence more than reassurance, and in that, we were not so different. When I was finally clear to stand without assistance, the council summoned us both. The chamber felt different than before, less hostile, more cautious. Representatives regarded me with curiosity rather than dismissal, measuring the human who had complicated their equations. I stood without armor or insignia, scars visible, hands steady despite the weight of countless eyes. I realized then that survival alone was no longer enough. I had endured the blast, the surgery, the politics, but now endurance demanded something quieter and harder: responsibility. The Queendidn spoke first, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. She did not recount the explosion in heroic terms or frame my actions as destiny. She described a choice made in seconds and the cost that followed. She spoke of laws designed to prevent corruption, not compassion, and asked whether fear of vulnerability had become indistinguishable from wisdom. Her words did not accuse. They invited. When she finished, she looked at me. I had not prepared a speech. Humans rarely do when confronted with moments that matter. I spoke anyway, carefully, choosing honesty over polish. I told them I had not saved her because she was a queen, but because she was there. I told them I would accept exile if it preserved peace, but I would not accept the idea that loyalty was a flaw to be corrected. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. The debate that followed was quieter than the last, more deliberate. Arguments shifted from punishment to precedent, from control to trust. When the vote was finally called, the result was decisive. The suspended law would be rewritten, not erased, narrow to guard against manipulation without forbidding genuine connection. The concord would adapt, not fracture. Afterward, as the chamber emptied, the Queendidn exhaled slowly, a sound halfway between relief and exhaustion. "You should have let me speak alone," she said. "Someone had to remind them I'm just a person." I replied. She regarded me for a long moment. "So am I." Life did not return to what it had been, because it could not. I was offered honors I declined, positions I was unfit to fill. Eventually, a role emerged that made sense to both of us, something unglamorous and necessary. I became a liaison, not because I was diplomatic, but because I was honest, a human presence that could not be reduced to stereotype. I spoke when needed and listened more often than not. It was harder than fighting had ever been. The Queendidn ruled with renewed clarity, no longer pretending that authority required distance. She remained careful but not cold, and the concord adjusted to a leader who embodied strength without denying tenderness. Our conversations changed over time, less urgent, more reflective, grounded in shared memory rather than crisis. We never named what bound us, because names would have cheapened it. Sometimes, when the palace was quiet, we returned to the observation dome. We did not speak of the corridor or the blast, but it hovered between us, a reminder of how easily everything could have ended differently. I understood then that the true legacy of that day was not survival, but the refusal to walk away from another being when doing so would have been easier. As the stars turned slowly overhead, I felt the future stretching forward, uncertain and demanding. Humanity would continue to be tested, as it always had been, but now the galaxy had seen another facet of us, one that could not be erased from memory. I stood there, scarred and standing, knowing the story was not finished, only paused, waiting for the next moment when a choice would matter just